I met Pavitra Rajaram more than a decade ago when she and her son Madhav were at a dinner party that I was also invited to. That was the first time I heard her speak of design and realized her power for narration. Whether she's manifesting a vision for a brand, a home for a client, or a product for the market, Pavitra believes in leading with the story. This is a woman who has been part of two design retail milestones in the country, Goodearth, and recently Nilaya Anthology, the luxury design and decor store created by Asian Paints in Mumbai. Over the years, her design practice has overseen the creation of homes and products for clientele that appreciate the heavy cultural baggage of her work. I have long admired her boldness with color, with prints, and her authority over words. You'll understand what I mean when you listen to this multi-award-winning designer talk about how her illustrious career took shape and the many roads taken and forsaken.
So I want to tell you why I wanted to do this with you. 10, 12 years ago, when I was working on an interior design magazine, we were still at sort of this like nascent stage of design and decor. And now there's a surfeit of platforms, there's so many things, and there's so many choices. A lot of what's happening in Indian design and decor, personality is kind of getting completely deleted out of it. And what I love about the way you work, I've watched, is that the context of your work is very clear. It's rooted in place, it's rooted in culture. Tell me how that happened first with great detail.
I grew up right here in Bangalore, and I come from a, I would say, traditional South Indian family, but not a conservative one. My mother, who is a proud Malayali. My father's family, we have roots in Chennai and Madras, which is where I was born. My grandfather actually comes from Srirangapatnam, so strong roots in Karnataka as well. My mother is a classical musician. She sings and composes Hindustani classical music. I thought that's how everyone lives. You know, I as a kid, I'd go to Madras and I'd go with my aunts to, Kalakshetra. My aunt Shanta Guhan has designed saris for years and years and years for Sundari Silks, and go with her to the weavers. And I didn't realize for a long time that this was somewhat unusual. I had a grandfather who collected crystal. He loved Dom and Baccarat and Steuben and Lalique. And as a young child on Saturdays, I would help him. We would clean the crystals. But now when I think about it, my God, loaded with cultural capital. And then when I was about 13, I was smart academically. I did well in school and I was academically smart. And I once, when I was 13 or 14, said, I think when I grow up, I want to have a shop with nice things. And they looked at me like I had said, I want to grow up to be a bar dancer. While I'd acquired all of this, I was expected to have a real career or study something real. And so I went as an undergraduate to Smith College in America, mostly to escape in India and being here. But what an amazing 4 years that was, to be in a women's college. And that was a very different America from the America that we know today. And I really studied politics, which I loved, and art history, which I always also loved. And in those days, paintings were broken down onto little slides. So we'd put these slides in a little, under a microscope to look at the details. Like pre-computer, pre-everything. So the joy of discovery is something that came to me as part of the training and the tools of my education.
But then you went into finance, right?
I did, because my grandmother, who, God bless her, is 104 and still lives in Bangalore, said to me, Kanna, I'm going to die, come back to India. And I thought, oh my God, I'm not going to go back to India, and I don't want to get stuck at home, and I want to, live my life. And I was actually working on Capitol Hill. I was working for a congresswoman called Pat Schroeder. When you're an intern, all of the invitations that the congressperson or the senator that you're working for doesn't want to go to are handed to interns. That's how you eat and that's how you live, right? DC is an expensive city. And in one of those receptions, I met Jerry Rao. And Jerry Rao was at that time CEO of the Citibank business in India. We got talking. I was actually writing my honors thesis, which was on sort of Kautilya's Arthashastra and Machiavelli's Prince, and one of those type things. And he actually, I remember, took a napkin and wrote out my whole thesis for me. I thought, my God, bankers are that smart and that cool. He sort of said, India is going through a massive renaissance. This was the early 90s. And it really struck me and it stayed with me. He said that, one of the saddest things is that the smartest people leave India. And people who are invested in that idea of India no longer come home. That stayed with me, I think. And then he said, if you ever want a job with Citibank, we have one. And the rest was history. I had no clue what banking was all about. One minute I was in the US, the next minute I was in Madras working in this business called Citibank Cards. And I'm so grateful for that, those 4 years that I worked for Citibank. It first of all gave me a sense of discipline and rigor. But I think what it did also was it gave me a sense of understanding what I didn't want to do.
Which is very important.
And I was miserable at it.
Yeah.
I was so bad at it. Because there I was, 22 years old, thinking I was a smart chick who'd gone to America and had this lovely degree and working at Citibank and all that. And I couldn't do the basic things that people could do. My job was to take the check stationery to the data center for printing. That was my job. Like, I got this 70s style Haji Mastan style suitcase, which had all this blank stationery, and I had to take it to data center so checks could be printed for payments for the next morning. And I would forget this every night. And there's an auto guy in Chennai who's clearly made his home because of me, because every night I would come running out at 2 in the morning to get into an auto and get to Shakti Towers where the office was to hand over the check stationery. I'm laughing about it, but it was a miserable time because, I just didn't enjoy what I was doing. And I realized that intelligence and aptitude and ability are all three very different things.
Yeah.
And that in order to be actually good at what you do, you have to really love it and want to do it. Like, I find this whole carpe diem thing a bit silly, like live every day like it's your last day. Because I think if you actually did that, people would be doing crazy things, right? They'd like wipe out their bank account. God knows, have mad affairs. Who knows? Like the last day. But I think if you can actually approach it like it's the first day, like with that same sense of wonder, that same passion, the same sort of vulnerability, that's special. And I think you can only do that if you really love what you do.
If there are sort of important retail milestones in India, design retail milestones, Goodearth is one, Nilaya Anthology is one, right? And you've been a significant portion of the creation of both of these things. What Goodearth did was, there was this kind of world of design and culturally bound design that I didn't even think was possible. And suddenly Goodearth made that accessible.
Literally, I ran into Anita Lal in Neeru Kumar's store, Tulsi, in the Santushti village in Delhi. So I'd spent 4 years at Citibank and went through a major personal setback. I actually had my daughter, and she passed away. And when you're that age, when you're 24 and you're a young mother, and then you go through something like this, life is so shit that it actually allows you to do things that you never thought you'd have the courage to do. Credit to my ex-husband, who actually said that, listen, do something you love. And I think to have that support, it's very freeing. It seems like a simple thing, but it's actually keys to the kingdom.
Yeah.
And I switched from Citibank to a small mill called Tamarai Mills, who were creating a value-added kind of sheeting product which they wanted to sell in Europe. And they were doing it just outside of Madurai. And I went to work with them as a sort of marketing consultant, because that was the only way in. Manju, that changed my life. I learned to wear a sari. I learned to speak Tamil properly. I, would take the train from Madras to Tirumangalam. And I met so many women who were like me. And even now when I think about it, it moves me, just because I think that, I realized that there were so many people like me going through the same things, trying to make a living, wanting to have a family. having something to say,
Yeah.
you know, wanting to have be a person,
Place. Yeah.
a place
Yeah.
in
For
this.
yourself in the world. Yeah. Yeah.
Those 2 years were so beautiful. I'd get on this train, I'd go there. And it was then that I reconnected with those early seeds from my childhood. My grandfather was a teacher. He was a professor of history and logic at Goodearth College in Calicut. My grandfather would come and pick me up in Bangalore, and we'd take the overnight train to Kerala. And I would wake up in the morning, and it would be 6 in the morning, and you'd see the dewdrops on the metal rails of the train window, and you'd look outside and you'd see the laterite and the moss, you know, and you'd see the palm trees and the banana trees, and if you were lucky, you'd see an early morning elephant. That magic had been sitting inside, you know, somewhere. It was there, and those trips to Madurai connected me back. We were creating this beautiful sheeting. Actually, Marthan Singh was part of the project. Mapu was part of the project, and he was really such a great mentor to have. And he actually sent me to Delhi to meet Neeru Kumar and to show her this sheeting and to say, "Would you like to keep it at Tulsi?" And there I was, literally like the medical salespeople, you know, the reps with that little bag with swatches. Waited for hours, you know, to meet her, and I went to meet Neeru, and uh, you know, Neeru was at that point in time not interested, and said so, you know, very sweetly. And I was on my way out, and that's when I bumped into Anita. Literally, she was coming in. She used to create beautiful pots and sell them at Tulsi. And literally, these things went tumbling out of my hands. And she said, "These are so beautiful. What are they?" And that was the first time we connected. About a year later, she called me to say that, "Listen, I'm thinking of doing a store. I want to open a home store." Her daughter had just gotten married, and Anita was very frustrated because she'd been trying to put together a trousseau for Simran, and she felt like the finest Indian things weren't available in India. She said, "I want to change that. I want to do something." Goodearth is because Aisha, which is a family owned by Anita's family, was Aisha Goodearth. And that's where the Good Earth came from.
And this was the first one was on Pedder Road.
The first one was a charming little 1,000 square feet shop. Many people still remember it. It was at Kemp's Corner behind the bus stop. I remember the day the store opened. I think it was 1996. If I'm not mistaken, it was January 18th, 1996. The store opened, and we were so stunned because everything sold and we hadn't thought about what to do. There was Fab India, of course, but there was nothing.
Nothing in between.
There was nothing.
There was Sharma Hoja, there was Fab India, there was, and there was really not that much.
Yeah. When Goodearth opened, I was still living in Chennai and actually just working with her on this sheeting and, you know, that kind of stuff. Subsequent to that, I moved to Bombay, and I wrote to her and I said, you know, I have all these ideas, and I mean, only Anita. I can't think of anyone else on this planet really who would have that sort of courage or generosity to say, yes, yes, of course, I love you, and we had a great time and we did so many things together. Come and be a part of Goodearth. So initially when I started looking at marketing. I think it was too nascent to call it storytelling.
You're a great storyteller. I don't know anyone who tells stories quite like you.
So. Thank you, but it was all the more precious because it was done together. I've never been in a meeting where Anita said, "Oh, my plan is in 5 years to be this, so in 10 years to be that." Anita would say, "I want to sing like the birds sing, not caring who listens." Or, you know, we are all flowers in the garden. Each one is beautiful in its own right. So when you're an impressionable young 20-something, that's the philosophy you learn.
Yeah. I always make fun of you about the Goodearth effect on your practice. But what I mean by that is that there is a very, you know, there's an absolute clarity when I see the spectrum of things that you've done, including your own spaces you do for others. Point of view that comes most importantly, and I know I said this at the beginning as well, from the context of these spaces. And I'm curious as to how you managed to develop that.
For me, because I have a deep interest and love for India, Persia, Iran, Indonesia, Arab worlds, we've been uniquely placed, our history and our geography, that we've been at the center of civilization for centuries. And when you have a culture that's like that, it's rich in threads. There's stories, you know. And I think when you understand that, and that flows authentically, everything becomes richer and more beautiful. How do you know the right shade of blue? Whether it is Vishnu's neck in a Tanjore painting, or whether it is the asmani of the sky in a Mughal painting,
Yeah.
or whether it is the Neel of Ajrak. Blue can be blue, can be blue.
Yeah.
But the more you engage and the more you see and the more you understand, I think that's what gives that context and that richness.
So, what is your process like when you're working with clients?
I think it's emotional, Manju. I think it is about understanding that the home really represents something very precious. It comes from my own life experience. I separated from my husband when my children were very young. We were displaced for quite some time. We struggled with that idea of what home is, where is home. I had to define for myself what home was for me, for my boys, what did that represent. And I think every single client I've worked with, at the center is that yearning for defining home. So I don't see myself as creating something for them that they are incapable of creating for themselves. I see it as a partnership. I use this little sociologist model with my clients. It's called Hofstede's cultural onion, and that's the nerd in me talking. It basically says that everything is a continuum of culture. So continents can have cultures, countries can have cultures, brands can have cultures, and families have culture. At the very center of that are your values. We build on that is the next level, which I call rituals. What are those ways, the everyday ways in which you express those values? I know you, for example, when your boys are around, that it's very, very critical for you to have those moments with them, right? Whether it's that breakfast together or whether it's that winding down at the end of the day, the letters you write to each other, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's precious. And then I use what I call symbols, which are those spaces in the home that then bring together the values and the rituals.
People loosely refer to this word taste, but taste is also sort of a summation of all these things, all these layers of all these factors, culture and rituals. And I mean, that's what you're translating into your so-called or the perception of taste is actually all of these things.
I've been in homes that have, that clients have invited me to, or people have invited me to, that have been done in the fanciest of ways, and they are afraid to sit in their own home. I've had so many lovely ladies at Goodearth who've come, who've not understood how to take that home and put it on their table because the table is minimal. That how do you then make things fit? You have to work inside out. You have to understand your clients, their lifestyle, their lives at this moment, their deepest desires, and then build around that. And that's what makes that magic. And then that last layer is the beautification. One of the most beautiful spaces I've ever been in is in the Amrabad Forest Reserve, where the Chenchus live. They're a nomadic tribe, and we were doing some work there. I went into this little, it was really a tent. And of course, it was just a mud floor. It was quite dark. And they had one charpoy and a few things that they had collected. But in the corner, I mean, when I think about it, I get really emotional. She just had a little shelf and she had a little picture of her parents and she had a photograph of Dr. Ambedkar. And I always think of that as one of the most beautiful spaces I've ever. It's a space that's going to be with me forever. Because I thought, my God, in this little space with nothing, there's so much authenticity and there's so much soul.
But there must be sort of absolute no-nos of things that you would not have.
I try to lead them to it gently, So we do a lot of mood boarding. We share a lot of visuals. We actually start every interaction with a little workshop. So we do a day-long workshop where we get them to look at visuals and say, I like this, I don't like that, to listen to music, to talk about their holidays, to talk about, how they spend their time at home, what are their hobbies. Some people will do it easily, and some people you'll realize, I don't enjoy doing spaces that aren't going to be lived in or that people aren't invested. They don't turn out as well as homes where I'm engaged, where I'm engaged with the people who are going to live there, where there's that conversation, there's that debate, And I think I always leave room for their life. So if they have that one ugly poster that they bought 45 years ago, that's no longer ugly because it has meaning.
Yeah.
So where you put it, how you put it, of course you work around that. Um, but I try not to. I don't know. I have a personal sort of reluctance to edit those kinds of things.
Yeah.
2 years in that, oh my God, this is what I need to be doing for this person. But you get there.
People are different ways at different points, and their homes sort of reflect that, right? The home you have at the,
Yeah.
at one point is not the home that you're going to have 10 years after.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about, you've had this big life change. You got married again a couple of years ago. You guys have worked together on the Sarmaya Arts Foundation. You're both individually collectors that have come together. What is the marriage of collections and decor inclinations, families now coming together, 4 boys between the two of you and a daughter-in-law? What is that like when people with such specific and, intentional interests come together and build a home together?
I mean, it's Ali and Fraser. Let's not imagine it to be anything else. Manju, it comes back to values. Paul and I, as different as we are, he's quite a bit older than I am. We have different contexts. We come from different worlds, but our values are the same. I mean, we've been together now almost a decade, and we still have spaces that are our own, and we still have things that we cling to because they remind us of who we used to be. We both learned to respect that we're two powerful people with agency and who've had, colorful, powerful, amazing lives, that this life doesn't need to be an erasure of those lives. And I think you come to it slowly. In our case, of course, we built this little gem of a home in Coonoor, which represents hope. Paul lost his wife to cancer and was raising his kids. And I, of course, had been separated for many, many years. And I was raising mine when we met each other. So we were people who had seen some of life and some loss and we were vulnerable. And so when we put our families together, it was 3 parents, 4 children, a dog, and the 2 of us, and a whole host of our past life, right, coming together. The children for us are at the center of our home. It doesn't matter if they're coming home for a week or 10 days or never for 1 year or all together. We said this has to be home for all of us. Coonoor was a home where we selected things together. Paul was again wise in that because I have a tendency to want to do it all myself and to be like, okay, now you stay out of it and I'll do it. But he did assert himself, and thank God he did. Although I hated it at the time, and I was really annoyed with him for having an opinion. In retrospect, I'm so grateful that he did, because when we go there, we feel like we felt when we first met. It's our home together, and every little thing that we put there has some meaning. We have only 2 photographs in that home, and one is of his children and one is of mine. And we said, this is a talisman of what is at the center of our lives. Honestly, in our Bombay home, we struggled. So I used to live in an apartment. Paul lived across town. We used to cross each other every day. And then he moved in next to me. So for a while, we had these 2 apartments next to each other. My children were in their apartment, his children were in their apartment. It happened slowly.
But you've kept your apartment.
I've kept it. I'll never give it up.
But it's also, it's interesting, right? In society in general, a woman is not meant to, like, a residence is always considered for the family, for everybody else. But to have it as a symbol of your own independence and your own journey is something that is extremely important.
I think it's 2 things, Manju. It's also for my own children. I mean, their fathers has remarried. I've remarried. I never ever want my children to ever think that they don't have home. So, and for me, that home is the most precious space because it's where they grew me up and I grew them up, and it's where we taught each other everything from balancing the accounts to how to tie a tie, to graduations, to it's a lot of soul in that home.
I feel like particularly now in the age of sort of, Pinterest and AI generated design, a certain
Yeah.
amount of imperfection and a bit of sort of sore thumbness in a space is good, because
Yeah.
it kind
It's
of shows
real.
your character and
Yeah.
your personality, and it makes it interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's scary, this sort of movement towards making, and I see two things that are scary actually. Like one half is this whole desire for perfection, right? So that AI inspired home that looks and feels another way. On the other hand, is a whole breed of designers and decorators who really feel that they know everything about everything. And I find both very alarming, because I think the truth is actually somewhere in the middle.
I
The
think
mix is,
it's also, I think this perfection, a lot of spaces now, I keep trying to connect image with image, space with what could possibly be the inspiration. And I sort of call it the salonification of Indian interiors, because a lot of spaces to me look like exhibits at Salone, because you've kind of taken a
Sure.
picture and you've kind of rendered that into real life, and
Yeah.
it's missing tactility of culture and place and your history and the imperfections of all of those things. Yeah, I'm not sure whether people are trying to go in that direction because they're unsure of themselves, maybe, or designers are sort of lazy about it.
well, I think sometimes designers and clients both lose that sense of cultural rootedness, right? And the fact is, we are an oral culture. Our culture is not linear. You don't understand things by reading a book, or there's nothing that says A to B to C to
Yeah.
D. We have understood life through food, through
Yeah.
music, through nature, through dance, through family anecdotes, through those are the layers. That's how our culture is structured.
Yeah.
So our homes have to be structured in the same way.
Well, also, we had this debate when we did that episode with Vinita, and there was a cut about this conversation about minimalism versus maximalism. And then a lot of people sort of like, oh, I like, I mean, and I wanted to say that actually it wasn't a question about minimalism versus not. It's just that our culture is a very layered culture. We have frugalism, which is at the heart of us, where we reuse things, and a lot of great craft comes from that sense of not letting anything go to waste. I don't know, like this kind of tightness, and having only one sofa and two things. I don't know. Somehow, I feel like there is a lost opportunity to tell stories, right? It's not to say that people having very few things in their houses, somehow it's not wrong.
I love the word frugalism, Manju. I think in the context of India, frugalism is an aesthetic one can understand.
Yeah.
Minimalism, I don't know what that word means.
It's a philosophy. I think frugalism as a philosophy, I understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't waste something, reuse it.
Form
So
equals
much
function. I mean, there's so many things in that one can totally understand. I don't understand minimalism and max. I don't understand these words.
I think it's also, one of the things that we're going through right now and perhaps again because of decor media, design media, is that we've adopted a lot of ideas from Western readings of these things, and without sort of contextualizing it and what it means for us.
When you can't underestimate the role of colonialism in culture.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
And culture is everything. It's not like the world of design is somehow, uniquely protected from any of these influences. The minute you engage or learn about the rootedness of the space that you're in, the geography, the history, then you begin to engage with culture. And I think then that naturally flows into anything you do, whether you're a banker giving loans, whether you're a person creating homes, whether you're a doctor, telling people how they can sort of use natural foods. So I think that understanding that context has nothing, it's not just a conversation about design. It's a conversation about how we live. That is what we are losing. And that is why this minimalism feels forced, or people feel like that's a way to kind of
I think
assert themselves.
I think it's also we're sort of grasping for words of our own,
Yeah.
right? Half the time, and you mentioned colonialism, and I think I'd like you to sort of talk about color in that context, because part of what I do is we run a gallery with a friend of mine, and we just did a collection which was this bright Chettinad inspired collection, and
Which I loved.
yeah, which
It
a
was
lot
so
of
clever.
people said, oh, but this is too bright. Do you have anything in neutrals? We've given into this idea that neutral colors mean elegance, it means expensive, it means
Yeah.
luxury. And one of the things, like I said at the beginning when we were starting this conversation, what I love about the way you approach it, I mean, to you, blue is a neutral.
It is. It is
I've
actually.
been in rooms. Well, yeah, I mean, blue is, but I've been in rooms where you've tried to convince us of many shades of teal and aquamarine, and which is interesting, right? That notion that you can only use a white, and a cream as the base of a room, but it does come from someone else's reading of culture.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's so much white in our culture. In fact, the Upanishads detail 5 shades of white, right? So there's the white of the conch shell, there's the white
Yeah.
of the malipu, there's white of the moon on the waves. So I think color has context.
Yeah.
So when you look at even neutrals, but if you can look at them within the context of culture, then those neutrals will be very, very different.
Yeah.
Right? A grey in India can never be cold.
Yeah.
But a beautiful warm grey totally fits in the context of the world.
And
that
it changes
we're in.
with the color of your city,
It
right?
does.
Your city, where
It
you
does.
live. Like
Absolutely.
the grey in Bangalore is not the grey that you will see on the walls in Bombay.
Because in our culture, color is coded, language is coded. In Tamil Nadu, for example, you have a beautiful bluey green, which is it's a tealy bluey green. It's called Mail Karuthu. Mail Karuthu means the neck of the peacock. So it's not even peacock, it's the neck of the peacock, the specificity of color.
Yeah.
When you say asmani, it's the particular shade of the sky at dawn. Everything Rani, I mean, so many pitambari. Like these colors are loaded with culture. If you don't understand that context, the exact shade will escape you. And at the end of the day, color, like any Indian raga, it's the notes. How you put it together is what determines. And you also have to know, am I writing a thesis? Is it a melody? Is it a poem? Is it a haiku? And then the usage of color is controlled. Volume of space also has an impact on how much color you can use, how much or how little. What you're trying to achieve in that space. Are you trying to make it denser, deeper, more cocoon-like? Or are you trying to make it open, more enveloping?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's as simple as saying, oh, let's do this red wall red, or let's do that blue. I have this lovely little room in Bombay, TV room, and ours is a rented apartment. And it had like a leather floor. And it's a tile that looks like leather. And I was aghast. And I'd always think, how can I cover this? Put carpets, do this, do that. And it had this wooden paneling on which was installed this gigantic TV. But the kids all watched football there, and they'd be laughing all night long, and I would be cursing them because Paul and the kids would make so much noise in that TV room, and now they're gone. And every time I pass that room, I feel, oh my God, I want them back. So I said, I have to change this stupid room. So I threw the TV out. And I painted the room a deep, 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 deep tobacco brown. It's a color I've never worked with. It's like the color of your eyes. It's that deep, like that mulchy brown.
Yeah.
And I put that on the wall. I said, okay, I'm going somewhere with this, because I thought, let me embrace this leather on the floor and this brown
So you
paneling.
have a full brown room.
I have a brown room, but of course, then what I did to it is the brown room got an emerald green sofa, and that got layers of color. And then I brought 2 beautiful paintings, and where the TV was, I now have a gorgeous painting. Now I call it my salon. And then I was in Alibag, and Pinakin had this a 4-foot high ceramic statue of Chairman Mao, and he didn't know what to do with it. And I said, "Oh, I love Chairman Mao." And the next thing I knew, he had gifted it to me. So now Chairman Mao is in that
Sitting in
room,
the room.
as well. And I have to send you a picture of it. I think it's a charming room. And me, who never entertains, never invites anyone over, I'm always plotting, thinking, who can I call for dinner so I can sit in my little salon.
How do you check if the color works? Do you test it out at different times of day? Do you, I don't know,
No, in my head.
you don't put a giant swatch on the wall and check it?
No, I don't. But I think that's my own evolution. And
Because for a lot of people, they don't anticipate that the color that you're going to buy in a tub is going to look very different. And it's going to look very different in the morning. It's going to look different in the afternoon. It's going to look different in the evening. And it's going to look different in different light. Color, I mean, it's also a material that has a personality. So it's going to just interact with other things.
Absolutely. I think in Indian homes, there are two kind of very safe worlds to play in. One is the world of warm neutrals. Like this room is filled with so many warm neutrals. And then you layer on top of that the world of midtones. Like I think pastels are hard to do.
Yeah.
And so if you're a first time decorator, if you're experimenting with color and you're working with a pastel, that's a little bit harder. It takes a little bit of time and experience to know how to work with pastels. And I think the rule I always sort of use, I tell everyone in my office, is that when you're working with a pastel, try and go for something that has a slightly blue undertone.
Okay.
You know, it'll just hold the light a little bit better. And then when you're working with that mid-tone, go with something that has that little reddish undertone. And, you know, those are little safety nets.
Okay.
Because a cold pastel will look better. You know, if it gets too yellowy, it could look dirty.
Yeah. I mean, it becomes intuitive, I guess, after a while.
Yeah, it does. It does become intuitive. It also becomes fun to experiment. I keep trying to do different palettes. I was a blue person for a very, very, very long time.
I want to now jump to how you've kind of now professionally sort of created a space that is more you, which is Nilaya Anthology, which is something that, I mean, I work on a very small part of it. You are
That's
the
not
creative
true.
director. Well, I mean,
You're my kitchen cabinet.
Right.
You have many times in your very droll and languid way told me when I'm doing something stupid, Manju. Please
No,
take
but
credit for it.
when I see anthology, it is more you. It's tactile with the clay and the silks and the sort of the imperfections of craft. Like when I see it, it's beautiful, but it also allows for the cracks and the textural differences and the breaks. And it would be interesting for you to explain why you felt that it was the right time.
First of all, what a privilege to craft this kind of world. And it's my love letter to India. Anthology represents many of us creatives who have a deep respect and pride in our country, who have a deep, deep desire to tell an original story, you know, our moment in this century. And it's not an India that's apologetic.
Yeah.
Right? It's not an India that's poor. When you think about the kind of agency and power we have economically, politically, socially, and I'm not talking only about Indians in India, I'm talking about the diaspora, I'm talking about Indians all over the world. Anthology is not about rejecting the West. You know,
it's part of
it's very much a part of being in the conversation of what global design is. But anthology is also not about saying, oh, you know, I've got to have Italian furniture and like French fabrics and that's what style and taste is. It's about viewing both the worlds, the world of craft and craftsmanship, the world of global quality and design, putting them together on the same platform and giving them equal weightage. We have 92 craftspeople, makers, who are part of anthology, and they're from all over the world. Beauty of anthology then is that philosophy transcends geography. I'm only narrating this anecdote not because it has any more value or less than any other customer who comes, but because for your audiences it gives context. We had Pharrell Williams and his team, the Louis Vuitton design team. And they specifically requested to come to Anthology, and they spent almost 3 hours in the store. And they looked at every single thing. And his design team has someone from New Zealand, someone a Frenchman, and someone from Japan. So literally, how global can you get? And they minutely looked at things that we had done, were so excited, they bought for themselves. And I thought, that's something. I remember a time when Anita and I used to travel to fairs in Europe, and they would say, if you're from India, you can't enter the stall, and you can't take photographs.
Yeah.
So to create a platform where everyone can come, I always say the luxury at Anthology is not the things we have or the price you pay, but the time you're willing to spend. Everything here has been curated through that lens of time,
And it's also, I think it's also just the fact that it elevates the experience for Indian consumers, particularly, which there aren't that many examples out
I
there.
mean, you and I both know how many people, go to Milan with their designer. They're trying to buy this one thing. The brand gives them all kinds of, directions. They wait for months to get something. It's maybe not. And I think when we are a population of God knows 1 point however many billion we are right now, we're paying good hard-earned money. Why can't we have the best?
I see a lot of designers, for instance, using shallow experimentations in things and kind of talking about, oh, there's 35 crafts in this house. So there is a little bit of craft washing as well. I mean, I'm just curious about how you feel about what's happening right now.
I do sometimes feel cynical, or I pause to see. I hear people talking about their engagement with craft, and it is superficial sometimes. But I feel something is better than nothing. And if we are moving the barometer and it's moving slowly, so be it. Our civilization is 10,000 years old, so it really doesn't matter if it doesn't happen in my lifetime. What I care much more about, Manju, is appropriation and credit. Credit to makers and everyone who's part of something, And what would be great is if you find designers engaging with craft at whatever level they want to engage, even if it's as consumers or selectors of things. But if they can use their voice and their agency to actually platform the entire chain of makers, that would make me very, very, very happy. But I see young designers. I love Gauri's work, Gauri Adappa, and she'd just done this beautiful booth. And she'd so cleverly done the ethos of Chennai, but in a very modern interpretation. But the materiality was so beautiful. She'd worked with terrazzo, she'd worked with wood. So I think that there's so many of us, and our tribe will keep growing. If of 50,000 interior designers in India, even 500 sort of push the craft envelope, that's great.
What are all the things that you're working on? I mean, you have done product, you are working on spaces.
There are 2-3 different things that I enjoy, and I try to do all of them. So one is the interiors piece, of course, where I do bespoke interior design projects. The other is the piece with craft and community, where I work on my own, I work with other NGOs and organizations, and I work with Paul on the museum, which is Sarmaya, where we do a lot of work around storytelling and art and communities. The third piece is, of course, the piece that comes from the world of product and design. So it was Goodearth. I did a collaboration with Jaipur Rugs of carpets, which I love doing. And of course, Anthology, which is a whole world that we're building out. But the piece that I also do and I really enjoy is I run a small strategic advisory. So what I do is I engage with corporates who have a proposition in the design space. So the advisory, we actually work with brands. I work with the Tatas, I work with the Birlas, I work with brands to actually create storytelling for them and create, I don't want to call it positioning, but create sort of soul and intent.
My last question to you, what are sort of rituals for you really crucial to your day-to-day, especially when your day-to-day is so every single day is so different from the other?
My emotional ritual is to call my kids. It grounds me. Whether they answer or not, I try them all in turn. And I do try to read something every day. Reading is my way of putting back in. And I would say the third ritual is actually the practice of working every day. In our business, you can get weary very quickly. My conversations with you, my conversations with people in the team at Anthology, my own team, Paul, I use that all as fuel.
I think the people don't give work enough credit in a way, because
Yeah.
it's also a great education. Being in different circumstances, seeing new things.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, work has been.
Absolutely. And Manju, as women, we're socialized to believe friendship or downtime means the lunch or the kitty party or the
Yeah.
giggling with friends. And not that there's any, I mean, of course, that's if you want to do it, that's fine. A lot of our friendships, ours, for example, is rooted in a great respect for the work we do and a belief in what we are doing together. I love this quote. There's a quote by a Turkish poet. It says, "The more I know, the more I know there's more. The undiminished sea keeps rushing to the shore." I love that.
But thank you so much. Thank you for
Anytime.
giving time, and yeah, it's been lovely.
Anytime. I only forgot there was a camera.